Hello and welcome to the Digi-Tools and Accrual World podcast, the place to go for all your accounting, tech, knowledge and insights in the UK and beyond. This episode is brought to you by FreeAgent, the small business software that is making waves and probably starting to surpass some of their competitors. We'll also be diving into conversations with iplicit and Paul Sparks, talking probably about UI and UX, as that's very critical, and a jump away from AI, which seems to be all that John, Indy and I talk about nowadays. And once again, we'll be talking to the team at Tugger, mostly around, I guess, dashboards and traditional reporting against what people are demanding now, especially with this rise in AI and people's expectations of what can now be delivered. But before all of that, we need to bring in the other code creators, producers, editors, whatever we do on this show. And we've got John too with us this week. How are you, John?
Yeah, morning, Ryan. I'm good, thank you, mate. Are we enjoying the tail end of the summer? Is that what it feels like right now? I'm not sure, but all good. Just getting into the groove with a whole bunch of stuff work-wise and personal life-wise, just cracking on with stuff. It's good. How about you? How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I ache because I just did a long run in preparation for climbing Mount Snowdon.
Nice.
Yeah, it should be good. And hopefully it's not the tail end of summer, because the last thing I want is climbing that mountain when it's pouring with rain. That's going to be atrocious. So I'm fingers crossed for sun in a couple of weeks' time. But no, it does feel like that. I know we are British, so we've already jumped straight into the weather. But you're not wearing jackets yet, John, which must mean it's still warm up north.
That is true. It is very warm at the moment, and so still in fact t-shirt and shorts at the moment, which is outrageous, isn't it? But I was on a call actually with someone from South Africa the other day, and it was one of the days where it was a bit cooler, and I was wearing a fleece, and then they were like, "Oh yeah." I remarked, I said, "Oh, you're wearing a jumper. It's still quite warm in South Africa, isn't it?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's about 24 degrees." I was like, "Oh, okay, right, yeah." that makes sense. Yeah.
They wear jumpers when it's 24 and not 40 out there. 24, I'm like, yeah, shorts. There's no way I'm putting trousers. I'm sweating, but it's a bit different when you get acclimatized to the UK weather. But I feel like we're coming out of that summer period where everything gets quiet. Everyone's on holiday and it's starting to bubble up and get a bit more interesting. And we've got a few more events coming up. And obviously the most important one is the Digital Disruptor Awards on the 22nd of September. Are you getting excited for that, John?
I am indeed. Yeah, I can't wait for that, because it was a great event last year when we ran it the first time. So we're hoping for bigger and better things this time around. And we seem to have got a lot of interest already, early doors, which is great. And I know that you did the call the other day for the awards and who'd been nominated and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to sort of hearing more about that. And I think we're going to have some fun. We always have fun, don't we?
We always have fun. That's the main thing. It's entertaining, and it's not one of those exclusive events where you have to pay the ticket to attend, and experience it. You can we live stream it, so you can still experience it from the comfort of your own home, in your slippers, in your dressing gown, because obviously summer will be over by then. We're a cup of cocoa, and us being idiots on stage, but still recognizing the amazing achievements that people have made over the last year in the world of tech. And we have our shortlist. We know who will be up for the award now. We've had lots of great nominations. We did have to whittle it down quite a lot to get to a good shortlist, but no, it's incredibly exciting. I can't wait for that night. And by the end of it, as probably like I was last year, I'm going to be absolutely exhausted. It took it completely out of me last year.
Well, you're gonna have to save a little bit for Accountex North the next day, Ryan. Otherwise, you'll be right miserable when you're walking around the show.
Well, I might have to do the same thing as I did last year, which is to go and find the people that won the awards, because that's the thing, right? You don't have to turn up and still win the award. It could be anyone that wins an award. It's not those that have sponsored or those that have bought the biggest table. That's not what this is about. We decide the shortlist, or I say we don't have influence. The judges decide the shortlist before we even get to the point of releasing tickets, and that's critical for us in making sure it's as independent as possible. Today, I'm joined by Paul Sparks from iplicit, the Chief Product Officer, and we're going to be talking a little bit about UI and UX. All we seem to be talking about at the moment on our show is AI. And actually, that isn't always that critical. Obviously, it's a new thing, but what really drives successful product is UI and UX. And I'm keen to hear, Paul, what iplicit are doing regarding this area.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so I think you're quite right. AI is really important, but actually the thing that most users will interact with every single day is some form of the user interface and that experience about how easy it is to do particular tasks. At iplicit, we've got a real key focus around this area. Every day, how can we improve what somebody does, makes it an easier task, enable them to be more productive? So a big piece of work we've been doing was we did a whole research and looked at where did the majority of our users use the product. And actually, really interestingly, when we got down to it, it wasn't what we initially thought the answer would be. The answer is that most people use a mobile app because they're putting on expenses or adding purchase orders or approving because they're on the move in a busy world that we live in. And so with that knowledge and that understanding, we had a look at our own mobile app and asked ourselves some tough questions. And so, coming very, very soon, I think it's October, we actually release it, and the preview will be in September. There's an all new mobile app on the Android and the iOS platform, using the latest design concepts around mobile apps and allow people to, there is a bit of AI in there, Ryan.
We can't avoid it, right?
Yeah, sorry, we won't mention it in this bit. But yeah, there's an all-new mobile app, and making sure that experience is greatly improved for people.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Everyone does everything on their mobile on the go now. I mean, I'm probably too addicted to my mobile, as I'm experiencing with a bit of RSI in my thumb at the moment, which is never a good thing. But everything has to become pretty much mobile first, the functionality. And it sounds like you're bringing both, to the main platforms at the same time. Some people do like iOS first. You're doing the release on the same ones at the same time. Okay. And is that because you've looked at your client base and actually the spread across the utilization is pretty even?
It's exactly that. Yeah, we did the analysis of our existing mobile app, what platforms people were using it on, and it is actually quite close, which surprised us. But what's more interesting when you start to analyze the roles, because different roles in an organization have a tendency to be more Android than and rather less iOS. Yeah, so we can even get down to the fact that more technical people in an organization are more likely to be an Android user, whereas people in sales and marketing and etc. are more likely to be using iOS.
So you've got a new mobile app coming out. And something that I always find when you've got a mobile app in finance software is that sometimes the functionality can be limited. Are you got exactly the same functionality that you've got in the old design?
We're actually keeping our existing app, a classic app, which has got some real in-depth pieces within the product, like heavy time sheeting and things of that nature. But we'll launch with the new version of our app for the areas where most people use the mobile app, and that was expense claims, approvals, tracking of mileage, and so those are the sort of first areas in the release in the autumn, and then early next year we'll add and fill more of those other areas as we go through the system.
Nice. And we've talked about UI and UX and making sure the system looks and feels modern, because there's a kind of an expectation now when you pick up a product. You're like, okay, it needs to feel modern. If it doesn't feel modern, then I'm assuming that the whole architecture is ancient. And I assume you've kind of thought about that in the mobile app as well, in the way it's laid out.
Yeah, definitely. To take a long, hard look, you've got to listen to your customers, and the feedback we've got is that people love our product, what it does. But for people who are not in the finance area, their only experience is commonly just like a mobile app. And although our mobile app was brilliantly functional, like many other products in the market, from what I've seen from our research and competitive analysis as well, the app just wasn't in line with what other apps people were using. And so therefore, it was so important that we address that and did that as the first piece. But just to add to that, Ryan, we continue throughout. We have a whole dedicated team now on our UI, UX, and that flows all the way through to our product over the months ahead as well. I can genuinely say that I'm so excited about where iplicit will be going in that area as well. And there's a lot of change on the horizon.
Yeah, cool. So the whole, not only the mobile side, but the general look and feel of the system as a whole, we're going to see a change over the coming months.
Yeah.
Cool. And whenever I look at it now, there's always like this intelligence of who clicks where, does what, to try and reduce that number of clicks. But there's so much in like iplicit product that marrying, I guess, or balancing the power with simplicity must be a real challenge.
Yeah, that's really true. And you know, much as we were trying to not discuss AI and that area, right, that leads into another area of work we're doing around our user experience. So in our next release, there is a new AI assistant.
Okay.
That AI assistant links through. It isn't just a help file. It does access help, but actually, more importantly, it also has access to a load of guides and video guides that allow people to understand how to perform a task. But it also enables you to, you know, access knowledge-based articles. So, you know, how would I do this? How would I do that? And so there's got access to a growing knowledge base that people can use. So you're right. The challenge for any modern software developer, especially a product like iplicit, which is hugely powerful, is how do you harness that power for the users without having to have a PhD in astrophysics?
Yeah, exactly. And I know that I guess when you were looking at this and you were starting to build it out and test it, you started it in, I think, the partner portal, and you know, got some feedback on how that looked. Is it pretty much, have you kind of learned from that, or are you just duplicating what that looked like and bringing that across the product?
Partner portal, or client manager, as it's now known, Ryan. The artist formerly known as.
Exactly, yeah.
So client portal was a step one. Our actual core UI UX that will appear in the iplicit main product will evolve beyond that as well. And so that was a baby step one to get some learning, but a lot more will happen beyond that.
And I guess we said the mobile app September, October, depending if you're kind of early testing or full launch. Are you expecting the new UI, UX, and the main product to start rolling out in the new year, or do you think it'll be before that?
Yeah, the work, it will start, it's due to start to arrive in our first release in 26. So I think that's due for February.
Yeah, and I guess it will roll out in stages because you've got lots of different clients. Yeah.
Yeah, it will roll out in stages, and we're doing, during the autumn, we're doing a bunch of work with some focus groups to get feedback and sort of show some of the work we've been doing and make sure that we are listening and responding, because nobody needs a revolution that arrives and everybody's like, oh, I didn't ask for that, and why did that happen that way?
Yeah. You need to get the tie in and not unwind, but make changes and tweaks to things that maybe people didn't expect to or would like to see slightly differently. And one thing that I'd always advise is, unlike some of the other products that have caused frustration, where they've started to roll out a new look and feel, but they've left other elements that are still very old, and that's been like 6-7 years down the line, right? You need to try and make sure there's an entire plan to transition the entire system across.
I mean, I think one of the advantages that we have is that iplicit is a very modern architecture. It's cloud native, and the tools in which we've used to build it and the way it's designed means that, you know, you don't have to go into every single area to apply those changes and what you're doing. It's you know, we can take advantage of the very latest technology to make that pace of change quite quick.
Yeah, and so I guess to finish on this, UI and UX forefront of everything that iplicit are focusing on at the moment. But I assume this is something that, you know, like buying a car, you're only going to do it you're not going to do it every year. So this is going to be a big change for now, and then I assume it will sit and rest for a while you work on other areas of the product.
Yes, but at the risk of going back to the point we're not going to discuss, you know, technology is changing dramatically, and who knows how that changes the landscape. And I think it's our job as a product team at iplicit to make sure that we're agile and we respond to make sure we've got a product that fits with the requirements and what people are looking for.
Definitely. People have already talked about individual dynamic AI-based interfaces. And I'm not seen or actually seen any kind of trials or betas or any examples of this, but I think that will probably be the next phase. But my prediction, that's a few years down the line, right? There's enough going on in AI in kind of operations first and getting that sorted. But thanks, Paul, for jumping in. And it's really interesting. And I'm excited to see and get my hands on what the new iplicit app and product will look and feel like.
First up, then, is there an announcement that came a little bit out of left field, I think, but perhaps not too surprising, which was the fact that Starling have acquired Ember. And I guess, Ember's possibly not that familiar to a lot of accountants, probably because it's not really a tool that we'd be using. But the whole premise of Ember was there's a couple of accountants that started it, I think, about 5 years ago. Could be out a little bit on the timelines, but effectively created a platform and a technology platform to deliver, I guess, small business accounting, but not in the kind of same way that you kind of be familiar with like FreeAgent and Xero. But this is really like stripped back. So this is kind of doing easy invoicing, making it easy to collect payments and stuff, and sort of bringing that all together. And what I would call is sort of like a semi GL, in kind of the way that it works. But I think what was most interesting about Ember anyway was that they'd effectively white labeled themselves to a whole bunch of high street banks, Lloyds, NatWest, et cetera, and really done that to deliver this kind of like basic accounting bookkeeping service that was a bolt-on for a lot of bank accounts, business bank accounts. And what Starling have done is they've acquired them. Apparently the deal's worth less than 10 million. But what Starling have immediately said straight off the bat is that they're going to disconnect all of those connections to their competitor accounts and competitor banks, which I think is probably the most striking thing about this, because the whole what that means is it kind of pulls a rug out from underneath their competitors who are maybe looking at lining this up to help with the whole MTD transition that obviously is coming up in not too distant future. But also because to replicate this and to emulate this is going to be quite difficult. Clearly NatWest have the FreeAgent tie-up, but a lot of other banks were relying on Ember to offer this white label service, and now that that's gone and it's been eliminated effectively, then they won't be able to do the same thing. And it's not like they're going to be able to spin up a business that does this really, really quickly and develop this. And there aren't really other competitors in the market. I guess maybe you could look at, say, what Lucy Cohen's doing. That might be an opportunity for her. But this isn't something that you can just go, right, okay, we'll go and find another Ember equivalent and bolt on. So, fascinating, I think. Of course, the big play on this is data. The great thing for the banks is that they get access to a ton of data. So Starling now own Ember. They now own all of that transaction data, give them real insights. And I guess from Starling's point of view, like a lot of the sort of challenger fintechs, one of the things that they're going to be switching into at some point is probably lending and some other bits and pieces around that. And business lending is usually the sort of typical space that people move into most prevalently. And so they're going to have a whole bunch of data there that they'll be able to access, which might help make that lending a little less risky, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if banks should be focusing on MTD compliance anyway. It's a bit weird with me. But I guess they're looking at going, we need to provide or potentially a free service to our clients, hook them in. Mm-hmm. They know that the NatWest FreeAgent players work well, and I guess it was a slower start, but now taking it's getting massive traction, and they're starting to win a lot of new clients from competitors in the space, which obviously then feeds really well into the NatWest banking side. So yeah, maybe it's a replica or a starting point for that, but I still think Starling should do credit cards before they start doing MTD. But as a Starling customer, I'm probably a little bit biased on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. I mean, I'm a Starling customer as well, and I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, I guess in some respects it's not. I guess it's not that relevant, is it? The businesses that we run are a little bit bigger. They have a slightly more complex requirements, and from a personal point of view as well, it's not that relevant. But I mean, it always strikes me as interesting because Starling's one of these banks that has been kind of like progressive and then pulled back. Open banking they've not really engaged with and stuff, and that's a real frustration for a lot of people. But I guess what's really interesting is that if you read the stats, it says that Starling actually serves something like 9% of the small business market, which is quite surprising. I don't know how that compares to other banks, of course, but I thought that number was quite striking in the overall sort of set of numbers. So I guess this makes sense for Ember to go in there. And one thing that probably shouldn't forget is that there's a whole bunch of accountants that work for Starling, so they'll be well aware of the requirements, with MTD and other things. So I think, perhaps if you kind of look at Starling compared to, say, a Monzo or to Revolut, who have a slightly more tech-driven C-suite rather than an accountant-driven C-suite, it's like that maybe they haven't seen this opportunity in the same kind of way, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. Well, I've got something a bit different in that you may have recently received an email from Xero in that they are changing tack in how they work with accountants' clients. They are now going to be emailing a newsletter on a monthly basis to your clients. So if you've got, a engagement with Xero, say you got, 50, 100 clients, Xero will now email them directly, filling them in on any product enhancements, providing some guides on how to use the system and some education on where maybe they can improve that. So tips and tricks and resources. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. Partly, I guess I've been in firms where we've run a digital team. This is essentially what we're doing. And I would feel that Xero would be, forceful without asking, just kind of weighing in on something I think the accounting firms that I've been at were doing. So for me, it feels a bit like they shouldn't be doing that, especially when, you've got the engagement with Xero rather than your clients engaging directly with Xero. So this sits a bit awkwardly with me, but maybe there's lots of firms out there that would benefit from this. One thing is that I think most firms now should be considering doing things more digital, especially with AI coming in and starting to erode compliance over the next 5 to 10 years. And if they're doing things more digital and the software companies are just bypassing them and going straight to their clients, I believe there should at least be a conversation. And I don't think that this has happened, especially from the way that this email came across. It's like, just informing you, we're going to do it. This is going to happen. But clients can unsubscribe. Not we can unsubscribe, clients can unsubscribe. And I don't know, it just felt weird. What's your opinion on this, John?
Yeah, I think perhaps I'm less concerned about this, but that's probably because we've come from sort of slightly different views on this, because I know that, like you say, you've run this as kind of a proactive level service for clients, and we haven't necessarily done that quite in the same way, and sort of delivered sort of webinars or regular updates to clients on the app products. I think partly because we've really struggled to keep on top of all of the various updates that have come in from lots of vendors, and our client base has been quite disparate in terms of what they've been using. So I actually think this is probably a good thing, because I think probably most accounting firms are in the boat that I find myself in, insofar as they don't run these kind of regular updates for clients. And so someone's got to do it. And if it's sitting with the client, sitting with the client's accountant, then Xero are at a bit of a disadvantage here, and things like that. And we know from the work that we do, Ryan, in the marketplace, we know that businesses, in the same way that accountants are guilty of picking up a piece of software, you learn all of the features that you've got currently at your disposal, but over time, or with the additional features that get added and the tweaks and the changes that get made to a platform, businesses and accountants don't keep on top of all those things, and they're not making the best, not making the most of those, and that's why we can get involved in some of the advisory work that we do. So I think I'm relaxed about that. What I would say is I'd be more concerned if this extends out into something where they start to talk to clients more directly around apps and app advisory type work,
right,
and you start to maybe make it seem, which they have been guilty of in the past, of being something that's very simple and easy to deliver and should be delivered at a very low cost, because it is a complex area, and it's not just about getting a shiny new toy and bolting it on.
Definitely. Yeah, I can see that, and I can see how this would benefit the many. As long as there is a way you can talk to your account manager and get it turned off if you want to. I don't think that...
I've got something else from Xero as well, which is really them sort of, I guess, switching on the superpower of Syft, which they acquired a while ago now, and they've been slowly rolling out updates, around the world across their global, not their global subscriptions rather, but across their country-specific global subscriptions. That makes that life complicated, doesn't it? But What they're doing is, taking, I think, the best bits of Syft and bolting it into Xero and really developing something out that means that the kind of reporting that you had in Xero, which was okay, like the plain vanilla P&L balance sheet reporting has always been really, really good in Xero, but kind of that additional stuff in terms of like the ability to sort of overview your dashboard and your KPIs and stuff, they're really going hard at that with Xero at the moment and really, making a big play of how this is coming into the product. And I guess, this is precisely what we wanted to see as a consequence of that acquisition, to see more of that. And then I guess what that allows us as advisors to do is you've kind of got this halfway house of saying, hey, within Xero, you've got this great suite of tools, you've got basic reporting plus some quite nice sort of dashboards that drill down into specific things. But then if you want to go all out and get a bit more complex for a business that's a bit more sophisticated, then you can turn on Syft as an additional subscription and then see more of that. And I've noticed quite a lot in terms of like LinkedIn community posts and stuff about not linked to this, but about reporting and what is it that small businesses want. And quite often a lot of people are saying, look, small businesses aren't interested in like regular management accounts and stuff. What they're really interested in is probably like a key 3 or 4 KPIs or performance indicators, some of which might just be really simple things like what's my cash flow. Other things might be linked to profitability and other things. But I guess that's what we're kind of getting at. So so effectively, to give it the right names and everything else, what they're doing is they're adding this feature called Analytics, which is powered by Syft, now in early access to customers in the UK. This has already been rolled out to Australia and the US. So for some reason, we've come to this late, which is a bit weird and a little bit frustrating, I would say, given that we're the second biggest market for Xero. And so the one big feature that they've got is a new set of cash flow manager reporting, which gives you a very nice visual overview of what's going on. And then you can sort of drill down into detail of that across your income and expenditure. And you can sort of slice and dice that in lots of different ways. And then the next thing that's coming, which is in beta for US users only at the moment, but will come to the rest of the world, is an AI insights tool, which don't think this is Jax, so don't get scared by this. This is more about using the data that's presented in front of you and to kind of give you sort of some basic sort of AI-powered summary oversights and stuff. And it's the kind of thing that I guess if you're used to using Google, you kind of see that now with Google where you get that sort of summary at the top of the page. That's what you're kind of looking at. So think of it like that. And so I think these are great updates. I think this is what we're expecting to see from the Syft acquisition.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a big step forward. And I think it actually now interplays with, I guess, the news I've got, which is that Xero have announced they are changing the navigation and homepage, which is something that we wanted. And I think we've touched on before, but is coming. And they've given more information about what that's going to look like. So they've had 30,000 beta testers on it. So this isn't one where they've just gone, Dave's got an idea. We're gonna change how it all looks. No, they've talked to 30,000. There could be 30,000 people called Dave, to be fair, but unlikely. The way they've done this, I think, looks pretty good, to be fair. So there was some frustration from me historically in that sales and purchase always sat in the same place, and you needed to kind of click multiple times to get to these areas, which are fundamental. And they've now hived those out. So you have home, sales, purchase, reporting, payroll, accounting, tax, and contacts across the top. And what I quite like is that it actually says purchases. There's no bills. Like, I'm sure there are bills as a sub thing in there. They won't get rid of it fully, but it appeals more to, I guess, the terminology we use in the UK, because every person that comes over to Xero, I am constantly saying that if it's called bills, it means purchases. Just run with it. You'll get used to it. It'll be fine. But just understand that bills means purchase. And once they've kind of got their head around that, it's fine. But the other big positive is they are reimagining what the homepage, the dashboard page looks like. And that, I think, is going to, as you say, really utilize the power of Syft. So if you've used the homepage before, little widgets, little squares, little boxes you can move around, and you can kind of turn them off, but they're always very limited. They've now added new widgets, and their plan, as far as I can tell, is to add more and more over time. So you can customize your dashboard for what you need to see, which I believe is what their original dashboard was designed for, but they kind of paused the development and focused on something else. They now come back to it. And the timing of, I guess, the restructure of the navigation is probably, John, why they've delayed the Syft reporting in the UK, so they align it at the same time, which makes perfect sense to me. And I think this is something that, as we've experienced in the UK regarding reporting and invoicing, people don't like change. And so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of uproar about this. But personally, everything that I've seen on it makes sense. And the last time that Xero changed the navigation, it was a dramatic improvement back then as well. So I'm 100% positive on this. There is nothing negative that I've got to say on it. I think this is great, and I can't wait to play around with it.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with you, Ryan. I saw some screenshots of what this looked like, so I haven't been involved in the beta, but I saw some screenshots of what this looked like. It did remind me very much of like Xero in the old days before they made the changes, which did cause all that uproar. So I think people would be pleased, and like you, I think it just makes logical sense. I mean, I think it makes that navigation around the product and you're getting into the bits that matter really, really easy. The screenshots seem to show some better insights as well, which I think appeals. So all around a good experience, I think, which is kind of what we want, isn't it? You know, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to move on to something from QuickBooks. So they have made a big announcement around their agentic AI experience and what they're launching into the product. So effectively, they've been working hard, it seems, to kind of do a little bit of work in the background on the Intuit platform. It's really interesting because kind of Intuit talk about their Intuit platform, but then talk about QuickBooks and the other stuff that sits on top of that. And they kind of have this strange, like, disconnect or, whatever between the two. But anyway, what they're saying is like from November this year, we're going to start to see a whole bunch of features and functionality added into QuickBooks as a consequence of doing all of this work in the background on the Intuit platform. And what this is going to look like is, not too surprisingly, more automation, I guess. Although Intuit made this big play about the fact that humans are still going to be kept in touch and kept involved in the processes and things. They've clearly been doing quite a lot of beta testing because there's a whole bunch of quotes and things like that, which, frankly, when you read them, are all meaningless. Like Intuit is solving for a big pain point to have a truly integrated platform, whatever that means. That's one of the quotes. But I think probably the most interesting thing is if you drill down into what the functionality and features they're talking about look like, is they're presenting a whole new dashboard, which gives you a bit of an overview of what's going on. So very much, I guess, like the Xero stuff that we're sort of seeing is like everyone's talking about dashboards and getting this information in front of your face. This is what they're looking to do. But the one thing about QuickBooks, of course, is that they own, or Intuit at least, is they own MailChimp. And so they're going to be bringing up data from all of these products that they have, not just the QuickBooks accounting data, but the MailChimp sales and marketing information as well in one place. You're going to be able to then see what's going on with your clients at a high level view and get a bit of an insight on their financial health and maybe where you need to sort of start to drill into it. So I guess think kind of Xenon or Dex Precision kind of information that you're going to be seeing. And then they said that they're going to add more search functionality so that you can do more enhanced, detailed searches to get the kind of information that you want, plus chat functionality coming in. So from late August, which is pretty much where we are at the moment, you'll be able to start getting into this in some kind of beta through an early access program. So that's something to look out for. And then I guess from a business point of view, what they're going to be able to do is you can do better scheduling. So if you've got a sales pipeline that you want to manage, you're going to be able to allow your customers to schedule like calls or leads, video meetings and stuff in QuickBooks, which makes that kind of MailChimp QuickBooks play really neat. You can then track that and you'll be able to start to see more information as it flows through the platform. So it's got a real sales focus, which I guess makes sense, because that's what businesses are really challenged with, I think, at the moment when you read all of the results and reports and things like that at the moment. So again, QuickBooks seem to be, playing the right game here. And their agentic AI stuff that they've been doing has been, I guess, a little bit low key, but what has been coming out seems to have landed. It seems to have delivered, unlike some of the other stuff that we've seen from like Sage and Xero, which probably hasn't been quite as effective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they're getting more stuff coming out with the AI, because we got kind of hyped up when it first was announced. Like, this looks really cool what they're doing. Then when I saw what their announcements and what they said their pipeline was, it was like, oh, that doesn't look very good at all. So the fact that actually they're now changing it and they're doing it a lot quicker, maybe that's the big positive, in that AI now enables coding to be done a lot quicker. So actually, all these releases around AI come to the fore much more rapidly. And everyone I'm speaking to is the back end of this year and early next year is where we think we're going to see a huge raft of changes in the way we work with programs powered by AI, essentially. So yeah, excited for that. But going from, I guess, sales, let's bring this into people. So Sage have announced a workforce intelligence platform for Sage people. Now, a lot of you probably haven't come across Sage people, because mostly we work in the small business space. So you've got Sage HR and Sage Payroll, which is designed for that area. Sage people is that level above. So the mid-tier finance system, quite a big machine, and they've now brought workforce intelligence into that platform. And this is mostly because they identified that only 15% of companies engage in strategic workforce planning, and they want to help bring that, I guess, that number up. So the what is, I guess, workforce intelligence, because the name itself doesn't really help. Well, you won't be surprised, John. It is AI powered. So obviously they're kind of using all the data that's in Sage People to enable them to slice and present data in an easy to understand manner. And they have basically said that it's built on the Salesforce platform. So anyone that's used to kind of the way they lay things out. But once again, John, it's about dashboards and widgets and information being presented to the fore. So the example that they put in there is very cool looking graphs, merely. But, you've got donuts, you've got bar charts, and it's actually just looking at information such as gender split for different departments. You're looking at kind of age versus years employed. So how that kind of works out. And then you're looking into resource planning as well. So does it look like you're going to need to bring in to filling gaps in certain areas because you may have a lot of experience, or I guess from a rating system, quality level employees at certain points, but you may have some gaps, or where you expect some gaps just from where people may be retiring as they go through their career. And that is what Sage People workforce intelligence is all about. My gut is it's not something we're going to get that involved in, because it's at a bigger level platform. But I think we're going to start to see more of these things appear in much of the kind of the smaller business HR tools over time. As I guess, as we used to see in the bigger platforms bring out the stuff, it kind of trickles down, or vice versa.
Yeah, agreed. What I find quite interesting about the update is that they've built it on Salesforce, and there was a big play, wasn't there, a few years ago by Sage about the fact that they were building a whole bunch of reporting, particularly for the GL products, that was going to be on Salesforce. And then that all seemed to quietly get dropped. And I thought that relationship had kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, that was Sage Live, I think, going back when, Sage were changing their product names every 6 months. But yeah, that was a big announcement, a big push, and then it just died. I think complete lack of traction of those customers that were on Salesforce and Sage just didn't really get the growth they wanted. And it doesn't really explain why they built this on the Salesforce platform. But yeah, admittedly, as long as it works for them, it doesn't really matter. And I guess if we're not forcing something out of people's throats, you need both, then yeah, it looks powerful to me.
Yeah, I guess there's a difference between building on the Salesforce platform and selling Salesforce to enable this, which perhaps is the key thing. So it's not I've seen a couple of other products fairly new to market that are built off the back of Salesforce as well. And I think what they're kind of doing is using their their underlying platform to kind of then build something on top of. So and I suppose, given that Salesforce historically has been a product that you could tweak to the nth degree, you could change everything in it pretty much. It perhaps makes sense that it's kind of there as a an interesting play for them, is to suddenly become a platform rather than a SaaS product.
Agreed. Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe in 6 months' time, it would have disappeared again, John.
Maybe. Let's carry on with the cynicism, right?
I'm always optimistic.
Absolutely. I've got another update from Sage, and this is particularly focused on Intacct, which is their ERP solution. I'll come to the updates in a minute, but what I found quite interesting around this was that apparently, so Sage had done some recent research, found that 84% of finance leaders want to close the books faster. So that means talking about month end and getting that all wrapped up. 87% are looking for more advanced AP automation to support their goals, which I mean, like 87%. I mean, what are these people doing if they've not already got things like, OCR and a whole bunch of other automation tools switched on? And then there's also a need or desire for more information around carbon reporting and sort of ESG type stuff, which will be explained in a second because it'll get bounced out about why that's being promoted. So what are they bringing into Sage Intacct in this coming quarter? So a whole bunch of stuff to help you with that month-end close, basically. So they've got a couple of things called the Subledger Reconciliation Assistant and the Close Workspace. These are so Americanized, it's unbelievable. But anyway, it's what they're talking about here is the fact that they've got Sage Copilot running in the background, and it will continuously monitor your subledger and general ledger balances. It will flag discrepancies, and it will help you to drill down to sort of resolve what those discrepancies are so that you can get things all tied up, ready for your month end. That's available already for the US and UK users. And then the Close Workspace is basically, I guess, what this really is it kind of like a segment of the platform that you can go into to sort of create templates and automations and checklists, essentially, to help you with that close down. So when we were talking to the guys at Intacct, they've kind of got something fairly similar. Sorry, not what am I saying? Intacct. When we talk to the guys at iplicit, they've got something similar, and a whole bunch of other ERP solutions have similar things going on as well. And then the final thing that they've got is they've got additional support around search, which comes from Copilot. Quite what that looks like, difficult to say because the press release doesn't give you a huge bunch of data. And then the other thing that they've added on, which I thought was a little bit weird, because we talked about an acquisition that Sage made fairly recently, and this isn't mentioned in the press release, but they're sort of talking about the fact that you can make payments, and this is US only, and the acquisition they made was in the US as well, using a product called Mineral Tree. So this is about helping to make payments by bank transfer, checks, because remember the US is like the 1960s still, or virtual cards, and have that just fully integrated and reconciled into Intacct. And then you've got a whole bunch of other stuff around, line matching if you've got purchase orders and bits and pieces. So, I mean, that's a bunch of stuff that's in there. It's good if you're on Intacct and you want to kind of expand that functionality out. But in reality, this is kind of stuff that we see all the time. This isn't really new. This is them bringing Intacct up to speed. And then the final thing that they're talking about is Sage Earth, which again is a product that they acquired a while back. They're bolting on the carbon accounting functionality from Sage Earth into Intacct. So UK customers in particular have access to that. Surprisingly enough, they're not pushing that in the US. I wonder why. I mean, my big issue with Sage Earth is that it's a nice product, but it only works on estimations. And I think for an organization that's going to be using a product like Intacct, what you really want is you want detail around your ESG and your carbon reporting requirements, not estimations. And whilst the estimations give you a good indication of what direction of travel you should be going in, whether it's you're trying to reduce maybe I don't know, international travel on flights or whatever it might be. The challenge here is like, businesses of this sort of scale really want detail. And this is where products like Xledger and others, really play into, getting that information in your fingertips.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about Sage Earth, John. That's taken us back to an early app news. And yeah, I mean, we've had a few recent updates from Sage. One on the fact that they put that lofty goal of eradicating period end close, and then they're essentially bringing in processes for period end close. So it's a slightly odd one, but maybe this is their first stage. And the fact that we're seeing more and more Copilot rolled out into the Sage Intacct product makes sense, and hopefully we're going to see it kind of drip down into the other products as they develop it out. But we talked about Xero, we've talked about QuickBooks, we've talked about Sage. It makes sense to talk about FreeAgent. So let's wrap this up with a little bit from FreeAgent, which now FreeAgent users can export management reports to Excel. So not a huge release, doesn't move the needle compared to their competitors, but it's something that helps with the product to get on par with, I guess, what you can do in some of the other systems. So this is pretty much any of the reports, your executive summary, profit and loss, balance sheet, debtors, creditors, all can be reported into Excel. And from there, obviously, you can use any of the tools inside Excel to create charts, graphs, tailor the format to see what it looks like. So once again, not a huge release, but a nice little thing that will help anyone on the FreeAgent platform.
So here we are, delighted to say joined again by Craig Morrall from Tugger, and we're going to be talking this time a bit about how do you add context to reporting? Because I guess as an accountant, Craig, I'm very much used to seeing P&Ls and balance sheets and that kind of financial information, but I know that you guys in particular specialize in gathering lots of data sources together, bringing those together and presenting them in dashboards away from more traditional reporting methods that I would be familiar with, I guess. And helping to give that kind of context and maybe tell a bit more of a story around what's happening with the business. And why is it that's kind of a focus for you guys? And how do you think that helps, say, a business owner or maybe an accountant advising a business owner to do more?
Yeah, I think it's massively important that data is actually combined together, to be honest. If you're looking purely at like a P&L or you're looking at a balance sheet, whatever, there's no information in there that tells you anything other than you've made this much money or you've lost this much money and this is your profit. It's not telling you anything about, who those types of customers are. It's not telling you where you've got those customers from. It's not telling you who effectively are necessarily your best customers or worst customers. You can't see, you can't often see, forecasted jobs. And I don't just mean sort of like cash flow data, I actually mean jobs in terms of resourcing and that. So do you actually have the right people to actually be able to carry out the work? Are you good or out of staff? You can't see that by looking at financial data. You might have a cash flow, but it's not telling you need 10 people to be able to deliver this job and things like that.
Yeah.
So with our platform, you're then able to kind of go, well, actually, I'm not just interested in Xero data. And I'll use Simpro as an example. So Simpro is like a job management platform used by sort of like field service technicians and things like that. So, HVAC and all that sort of stuff. And that's great. And the both systems work great. So you typically got Xero and you might have Simpro side by side. Xero managing all the financials and Simpro managing the jobs. And you've got the issue kind of on both sides as well. Because if you look at Simpro, it knows everything about the jobs and what's going on and everything like that. But it doesn't necessarily know all financial information that sits inside Xero. It doesn't know, what the office costs are and stuff like that. So you've never got a true picture either way. But by taking data from Simpro, so you're taking all the jobs, who's going and doing the jobs, who's delivering the jobs and all the rest of it, and then bringing that in with the Xero financials, you can actually work out exactly, who then potentially are your best technicians, who are, who's delivering the job quickest, and then going, well, actually, these people are delivering the job quickest.
Mm-hmm.
We need more people like that, or we need to skill up people because actually we're making a better profit off of these individuals. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. And again, things like HubSpot, if you like, HubSpot data, that knows everything about, where the lead came from, what you're actually spending on ads, whether it be a LinkedIn, Google, YouTube, whatever. And you can see how that turns into a customer and what that turns into. All Xero knows is what's it cost for LinkedIn ads or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess, traditionally, like I guess I was alluding to, that kind of information and that you're talking about there would have been presented maybe to, say, the marketing team or the ops team or the finance team individually in very traditional reporting structures and stuff. And then hopefully as an organization, you had to discuss that at some kind of board level or management level and stuff. Do you ever come across any kind of conflict in terms of like who starts to own these reports then? Because I guess historically, where those lines were very distinct, it was very clear who did it. But all of a sudden now, as you're aggregating this information together, who kind of is in charge of that reporting structure and then maybe managing that and discussing it?
Yeah, to be honest, we don't really have any sort of challenges in who sort of owns those reports. we tend to find it starts sort of top down and then gets sort of filtered out. The bigger problem that people sort of get more concerned is the fact that if they were doing a lot of spreadsheet work before, they get more concerned about owning those spreadsheets, and suddenly they've lost ownership of those spreadsheets, because actually now the spreadsheet data they were putting together is now being automatically exported and automatically reported on. So then it's, and it creates efficiencies in the businesses, so it causes other sorts of concerns, shall we say.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, there's always those concerns, isn't there, with any kind of technology about kind of removing work or taking work away from people that they were previously responsible for. But I guess, I mean, are you seeing I mean, I guess you must be, because otherwise you won't be in the job that you're doing, but are you seeing more sort of business requirements or accountants coming to you saying, look, we just want more of this data plumbed together so that we can get more of this context, and what's driving that? Is it the economics? Is it growth ambitions? Why do people want this information?
I think sometimes it's almost like blindness in terms of the data. I can think of one organization where they used to use Salesforce at one point, and then they took it out of the business and purely used Xero. But they had a group of I think about 4 or 5 different entities within the group, all operating separately, but they had literally no visibility on what the group was making as a whole. Everything was sort of separate, so they needed to combine the data together to get a full sort of look at it from a group perspective. Other things that are sort of driving it, I would probably say, is it is that margin. So typically in low margin businesses, they need to kind of squeeze those margins as much as they possibly can. So again, looking at where they can make efficiencies, particularly from an accountancy perspective. Now we've seen a lot of people who are typically doing advisory. They've got clients now that have got 2 or 3 different systems, maybe even more, and they're going to the accountants for advice and saying, look, we've got all these systems. How do we actually now report across all 3 or 4 of them together? And typically they don't always have an answer. Some might, but not all accountancy firms have an answer. And so they're coming to us and saying, oh, I've got this requirement, or someone's got HubSpot, they've got, they might have Xero, whatever. And they're saying, can you do anything with these to kind of get them back to a level where they're reporting? And we're seeing more and more requests now for new systems come out as well. So people are asking for different systems. I've got clients that are using this platform. Can you do with that? So we're getting a lot more requests about, connection into different platforms, not just the ones we're already offering.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And is there, I mean, I asked this from purely from being an accountant, working in this industry for over 20 years and dabbling in advisory, I guess, and delivering certain services. But is there a challenge then about educating accountants who want to start to deliver these reports, where maybe they are bringing in, say, HubSpot information, which is typically, CRM sales data, which may not be that familiar to them, or they may not be able to sort of understand how does that correlate with the other information you're pulling together?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the problems that sort of exists, is the fact that actually, as you say, accountants aren't necessarily familiar with HubSpot or Pipedrive or Salesforce or whatever it may be. So how do they actually kind of go about that? We've seen some accountancy firms building out digital teams internally now. So people are actually hiring almost like Power BI guys in-house that can then start to deal with this. Some utilising our platform to kind of aid with that, because actually, again, as I've mentioned on other occasions, it speeds up their development, because actually they don't need to worry about how they even get the data in the first place. So it'll go straight to that. But some of them are actually saying to us, like, can you actually offer the reports to the customers? And so in some instances, we're actually getting involved and saying, okay, we can look at that, and in some cases looking at building out, the potential of like almost like generic reporting suites that sit on top that might already have pre-combined data, if you like, which might have like Shopify and Xero data, for instance, pulled together already, so it's ready to go, rather than them going, where do I start?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the benefit of using you guys, like you say, is you've kind of got a lot of pre-existing connections into some of these systems, and clearly being requested to do more and more. one of the challenges that I see with some organizations is they may well have switched to, say, Xero, and they might have plumbed in, say, like an operational system or maybe a CRM or something like that. But then quite often they'll have some random bespoke system that's still living in the dark ages, but they can't live without it, and it won't plumb into anything else. So is that something you're seeing a lot of? And I guess how do you kind of deal with that to get data out to be useful?
Yeah, you do unfortunately see those weird and wonderful systems that still knock around in the past. The way we've sort of said to deal with it, rather than going, well, I mean, they've obviously got a choice, they can move it out of the organisation, put a new system, but that obviously takes time, there's expense, so that's not usually an option that works. But they've got two options. If they've got an SQL database, you can look to connect direct to the SQL database, so still then bring it through with anything you pull from Tugger. And the other option is if they can export the data into Excel, then that's a way of getting the data out and still being able to report on it. Then where possible, automating those exports, putting them onto something like SharePoint where it can, be, preloaded into Power BI service and run that way as well. So there are a number of different ways to deal with it. But occasionally, depending on how legacy the system is, we can look at potentially building connectors into them. But if it's sat in somebody's office in a back room somewhere, you don't tend to want to go near those too often.
And very quickly, what's the sort of the highest priority thing that you're being asked for at the moment? The biggest system that you're being asked for?
Biggest system, I would probably say at the minute is probably Shopify. I think that's probably the biggest one. So that is one that we've got in development at the minute. So that's probably the biggest one outside of sort of like your typical sort of finance systems and your CRM systems.
Yeah, interesting. Well, as ever, Craig, we could talk for hours on various things, and it's good to hear about what you kind of got there in the platform and how that then helps businesses and organizations and accountants advising their clients, to bring more context to maybe decision making and reviewing what they're seeing on the ground. So thanks for your time as always.
Yeah, no problem. Great to speak to you, John.
Cheers.
And that brings another podcast to a close. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already bought a ticket for the Digital Disruptor Awards, please do check out the Digital Disruptor LinkedIn channel where you'll find links to be able to do so. And if you can't attend but are really interested in what we're doing, make sure you subscribe, because there will be links posted onto there for how you can watch it live on the evening as well. If you don't subscribe to our newsletter, please make sure you do so, because you'll get all of these news articles before we dive into them and cover them in a bit more detail, plus putting our personal opinions and slant onto what we think of them. And then if you want to have your say, make sure you follow us every Thursday morning at 9 a.m, where we'll do a live webinar on the main topic on the news that we've run through, and we'll bring in a guest and you'll be able to ask questions, and it seems to be getting more and more traction with some very interesting and challenging questions being asked on a weekly basis. So yeah, please do subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.